how much of us are going through stages of grief right now? I mean, I had a guest on, I think last week, that said we're all kind of going through the 5 stages of grief. And I've caught myself a couple times, I'll be honest, Gabor, where I have this kind of bleak, depressed feeling, which isn't normal for me. And I'll have to just catch myself and admit to myself that I'm going through an emotional processing here that I'm not cognizant of, I'm not in control of, which of course is rare for me to believe that, to be like, okay, wow, there's things I'm dealing with. Or I'll walk outside right now and there's just no one around. It's like planet Mars. And for a couple weeks I can be like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. But then after a while, it comes to a point where it's like a bad episode on Star Trek, and it kind of gets to me. Are a lot of us going through different versions of that right now? And is that just another way of being aware of that?
Well, I've been through the same thing. I've had the same heaviness, this sense of depression. Um, it's not every day, and it was more a few weeks ago than I'm experiencing it now, but it does come and go. And I think it is an aspect of grief. And we're just grieving. And it's interesting about the 5 stages, like the bargaining and denial and bargaining and anger,
Acceptance, yeah.
and then finally acceptance. But there's somebody, I heard a British physician actually with lung cancer that went to her brain, a beautiful YouTube talk about grief. And she said, none of those 5 stages actually talk about grief itself. Like denial is not grief, acceptance is not grief. Grief is grief.
Right.
Grief is precisely these waves of heaviness.
Yeah.
That we go through. So that's actual grief. And we're grieving what we've lost. We may be grieving aspects of ourselves, but we're grieving. And yeah, and when that comes, all we can do is accept that it's there. Just as in the grief over a lost one, you just have to accept that this is what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
So that heaviness that you mentioned, my guess is that most people watching this will have experienced the same thing. I certainly have.
Yeah. And I've spoken with some people on video calls, and, people that, in their normal day-to-day lives, they can't exhibit that because they're leaders. And so they're not used to doing that. And I'm the same way. Like, when I'm at home with my family or my boys or my wife or my daughter, or I'm here, or I'm on camera, I can't be lamenting about how bad my life is or my day is. But I remember the first time I got a text and saw the first figures of, like, estimates of the dead in America. And it just hit me really hard. And I just wasn't used to that feeling, Gabor. I was like, because I'm the one that's supposed to be optimistic and tell everyone that there is a solution and we're going to find a way. But it took me a while to process it, like, 30, 40 minutes. And I was like, whoa. And then it happened a couple more times. Like you said, about maybe 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. And I guess that makes sense, right? Because I am grieving things, loss.
Yeah, although what also comes up for me when I hear you relate what you just did, is that maybe it's a part of yourself you're grieving for. Like, maybe you're grieving that part that's supposed to be always okay. That's supposed to be always on top of it. That's supposed to make everything okay. And maybe there's a realization that I can't and you can't and nobody can. And maybe we're grieving that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Grieving the fact that, like, we can't always be okay. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Although there's something nice about talking about it. I had the same conversation with, Grant Cardone, who flies around the world in his $50 million jet. And he's like, yeah, Brian, I had some hard times like that too, where I'm, normally he's the guy that's always being the guy. And he's like, I had some hard times where I'm just trying to process this stuff. And there's something nice about that too, maybe also being able to be human and, be multidimensional, where maybe you don't allow yourself to be all the time. So,
well, I have to say, now that I think of it, that's a big change. I think that I've seen a lot more people being vulnerable and open about their feelings than I ever have over this. And I think if that alone, what if just that changes? what if we can all be just more real together as we move forward after this is over? You know, that alone would be a huge and very healthy shift.